and welcome to a new episode of Youth Lounge on CYC. We're very excited to have with us today Father Shanuti, Irini, Mina, and another Mina. So today we're going to be discussing a very, very hot topic in our church. It's Lent. Okay, so I'm going to start off with Abuna. What is Lent?
Yes, obviously the Lent, or the Holy Grail fast, as we call it, is a period of fasting before Easter. So that precedes Easter. It's 55 days, and it's the longest fast period, single fast period in the whole year.
Okay, all right, beautiful. So how do we get into the spirit of Lent?
I think it's like, I personally would say it's more of a change of focus.
Mm-hmm.
It's, sometimes you think, fast is tomorrow, I better eat all the meat I can because I can't eat it for this long. I think it's not about that. It's not about, like, we always hear from people, oh, it's not about the food that you eat. It's about, doing this, about controlling your body. Yes, it is that, but I think we don't see that, or I don't see that sometimes fasting or just having that like subconscious thinking, okay, I shouldn't eat this, or I can't just eat this yet. Yes, it helps me control my body and, control like the needs of my flesh, but it also shifts my focus to what's more important. And it also helps me to realign my thought and think, like always go back to we're in a holy period, or always go back to, it's leading to something. And I think that's what kind of is swept under the rug when we think of fasting. You just think of that right now, just, I can't eat this and that's it.
I think I agree with you, but like at the same time, yeah, like some people say that it's not all about the food, but like if we think about it, food revolves around us everywhere we go. Like it's such, like, obviously we can't live without food. And, you go over someone's house, they'll offer you food to eat. You walk in the street, you find billboards of, Macca's or just any type of food. You open the TV, there's TV shows of food. It's just everywhere. And for us, if we don't, like, if we let food take control of us, then we have no space to, like, to let Christ fill us. Because yeah, food is big and it's something that necessary that we all need for sure, without a doubt. But for us, and also on the same page, we can't be pedantic about the type of foods that we eat, but we have to acknowledge that, food for me is something that I sustain this flesh with, but it's not, it's not my main focus. It's not like the thing that I kind of, some people kind of like, they adore food, for them food is like, it's they live and they wake up and eat, and like, I don't know, like food for them is just huge, but for us...
Yeah, they live to eat, not eat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But okay, so how do you make the link between feeling like emptying yourself physically and trying to fill yourself spiritually? Like for me, I find it very difficult to understand that link. When I'm hungry, I don't know how that relates spiritually.
I think when you look back, like in terms of like the needs of food, like exactly like how you mentioned, that food is actually, it's an essential part of living. I mean, everyone needs to do it. I mean, exactly like how Abuna mentioned as well, food, sleep, bathroom, that stuff are the essential prerequisites. So it's the idea of realigning a prerequisite of our life to God. And so some people do it with sleep, for example, where they have like limited sleep. And the idea is that they have limited sleep with the idea that they want to pray. And by doing that, they are realigning and refocusing everything to God. So it's using not only the optional things to align that to God, it's actually using the things that are necessary, things that we must live by, the things that, that we can't do anything like about. So we try to use that and exalt God in those actions.
Yeah, and fasting is really important for us. Like, there was in the book of Matthew, when Christ talks about fasting, like he never said like, if you decide to fast. When he talks about fasting, like he always said when you fast.
Yeah.
When you fast, like he always kind of, it's not a suggestion, it's not like if you decide to fast or if you feel, a little bit holy one time and you want to do something extra than fast. No, like he said, when you fast. So it's essential. Like obviously Christ knows the purpose and he knows the importance of fasting, and we have to understand that it's very important for us as well. So it's not just, something suggested. And it's important as well to know that, like you can't say, okay, like for if tomorrow, like fasting is going to start tomorrow, tomorrow, let's see, I'm going to, start, giving up social media, giving up all this stuff, 400 matanyas, doing all this stuff. Like it has to be done in a practical way as well. And what's important is to start young, start when you're a little child, start to train yourself in fasting, start maybe, cutting down on some foods and others start maybe giving up in like some other small things and like slowly progressing your way. And that's how you become into that. It's a healthy routine. It's not just a routine that you just do for no reason, but it's a good routine. Like you grow up and you find it just your second nature.
I think just on top of that, there's one verse that really stumped me in Deuteronomy, where it says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul." And it's interesting how it's like almost all the sort of atmosphere, like the sort of levels, the different aspects of our life. And like I've always struggled with the idea of how can I love with my mind, how can I love with my body, how can I love with my soul. And so like this is, I feel, is one avenue in terms of like the body aspect. So you can't truly love God with like only your mind. You can't just have a theoretical life with God. That doesn't work. So it needs to have to also have like an additional sort of layer with it. And so that's why I think it's absolutely vital to have all sort of like different levels covered, because otherwise it wouldn't be considered love.
I know before I did a bit of exploring, Lent, fasting was a very, very foreign concept. It seemed very traditional and very old-fashioned for me. And I never understood the link between Lent and Passion Week. Like, how can we make that link? How can we carry through what we learn from Lent or what we practice in Lent to Passion Week? A lot of people, they start fasting towards the end, or I know for me, I get a bit stronger towards the end. Why is that? Why do we have that perception that...
I love seeing it actually. Sometimes it's funny because like you see like the church like during Passion Week, I don't know, like I feel like people change, like they become like, they're going to start floating from how holy they are. Like don't you like ever think like, I wish this was our church all the time? I wish we just were always like that, like that type of dedication to the church, that type of, spiritual uplifting that we have in that period of time. If that was something that we always had, like, I don't know, I feel like it would just be so beautiful. But obviously it's not very easy, to attain, because it's just that 1 week where everyone like sort of goes hard on, But Lent is a very good time to progress into that. And it's a
journey.
Yeah, it's a journey, and
I like that.
It takes you through that period, and maybe at the beginning, like I know for me, it's it's Lent and it seems so far away. Like it's not till a while till I get to Passion Week, and so you kind of go through the motion of just fasting, but then, like Mina said, you kind of build on it, and it's even if you build on it when you're a baby, you can still build on it in that like that Lenten period where you get to a point where you reach the peak during Passion Week, and it kind of makes you see what you've been building up with for the past however many days you've been fasting.
What makes this fast extra special is it was fasted by our Lord Jesus Christ himself. And that's why I got the great holy fast. It's 40 days by our Lord Jesus Christ himself. So this is, when we're fasting, we actually need to remember that we're sharing that fasting with our Lord Jesus Christ. So as you said, Erin, it's a journey, and we can imagine how our Lord actually, when he fasted that 40 days, even though we are very relaxed in our fasting, he fasted 40 days completely, no food, no drink. So sometimes we need to remember that, because sometimes we feel the fast is a bit harsh, 55 days is too long, but remember that 40 days, nothing at all.
And I like, sorry.
I just wanted to readjust the question. Is it a natural thing for us to not feel it initially and then peak towards Passion Week? Like, is that how the church perhaps instituted it?
But that's sort of what she was saying before, like, it's a journey, you're building on top of it. So obviously when you start at the foundations, it's nothing much, but is that what you were sort of asking?
Yeah, I'm asking so...
Should you build up, or should you feel it from the beginning?
Should I feel like the fast from the get-go? Because I'm imagining how Christ would have fasted. I'm sure, did he progress as well? Or are we also like, did he start on a spiritual high? Like,
well, they give us a preparation week.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
So people say, why do you need the preparation week? It's too long already as it is.
But I like that what Abuna was saying before, like in the beauty of the church that we live in is that we live mystically the Gospels. When Jesus fasts, we fast. And that goes back to the idea of atonement. Like he comes to restore every bit of our nature that was in need of healing. So when we live the gospel, we are being restored with what he was restoring at the same time. And when he was in the fast, he was restoring the fact that, well, this is my opinion, that the body had dominion over us, but he was restoring that. And he said, no, you can do this. You can draw near to Christ, God, like this. And when it comes to Passion Week and we relive the betrayal, we relive it and we assess ourselves, it's all leading up to that, I believe. It's all a part of that, being part of that mystical experience. And that's why, I believe that there is more masses, there is more this, we're getting into it, we're experiencing that richness of the gospel. And that's the beauty of our church. A lot of people look at it and they're like, it's old-fashioned, it's unrealistic, it's a bit overboard, but it's a mystical experience.
Our church is alive. It makes us live everything, every event in the church, everything that happens in the church. We feel it. We feel it by, as you said, the more services in the church, the hymns as well. The hymns in the church have a very big impact on on ourselves. The words and the music. It's very touching.
Can you talk a bit more about that? Actually, something I'm very interested in. How does that change during Lent and Passion Week?
Okay, so if we're talking about so Passion Week is very obvious, obviously, but you'll find in Passion Week the hymns are very mournful. Even if it's not the words, but the tunes, they're very, very mournful, and they date back to the pharaohs as well.
Yeah.
They date back, it gives you that sense of you walk into the church and you hear that you feel like you need to cry,
Yeah.
You just can't stand there and just be happy. But it's not
even if you don't, if it's in Coptic, you don't understand anything. There was someone, sorry to cut you, Mina, but someone, I heard a story of someone who's actually from non-Coptic background whatsoever. He came and attended some of these services, and they asked him during a Passion Week service and during a normal service, and they asked him at the end, what is the difference? He said, this is a very sad. You're saying something sad. It is something in a mournful or sad tune. So he even didn't understand any of the words. He actually understood that this is supposed to be in a different tune, had a different sense to it. And he felt really, really touched by it, even though he didn't understand the words, but just the turn of it actually affected him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And yeah, I was going to say as well, for Lent, there's different hymns when it comes to the weekdays and the weekends of Lent, and you find even the words vary. But for Saturday and Sunday, because the weekend, Sunday is the remembrance of the resurrection. So it's still the Lenten kind of period, but there's a variation in the hymns. There's one specific example of that I really like. In the weekdays, for the matins, the verses of symbols, instead of saying the verses of symbols, usually the verses of symbols is Hail to Saint Mary, Hail to Saint Mina, and you hail all the saints. But instead of that, there's just a hymn called Kyrie eleison, and Kyrie eleison means Lord have mercy. And it's a hymn that goes on for 20 minutes. It's just and substitutes the verses of symbols, and it's just Lord have mercy. So because in that period we're trying to indulge ourselves in the mercy of God. Okay, we're trying to we'll not mourn anything but our sins, our fallen nature. So it's very nice that our church puts things like that.
But can I say something? To me, that feels very morbid. So I feel I don't know, maybe I'm being a bit extreme, but we take it to an extreme. We go in and everything's supposed to be sad. And when I don't feel sad, I'm not feeling Passion Week. I'm doing something wrong. How do you have that mourning kind of sense, but also that rejoicing sense? This is my victory. This is the cross. Something that seems so weak is like salvation in my eyes. How do you get that? Is it a balance? Is it, I don't know.
I'd like to further add to that. How do we reconcile this mournful attitude with "To you is the glory, the power, and the honor"?
But I think that is part of is that part of the rejoicing? I don't know. What do you think? We're a bit lost.
I think the people, when they say they're sad, we're not supposed to be going in and sad because of what Christ is actually going through. It's because sad for our sins that led Christ to suffer for us. So we're not sad because we have things in black and everything's, as you said, so very soulful tune, sad tune. It's because that should lead us to repentance. That should not lead us to just feeling sad and end. That's not the end of it. It's not for us to cry or feel sad or feel bad about ourselves. It's actually that should lead us to repentance. So the whole church is in harmony in terms of the tunes, as Mina said, in terms of the late masses. It's very obvious that we have late masses in Lent. Why? Because to encourage people to fast. Because we're supposed to fast, actually abstain from food altogether for as long as possible. Everyone obviously depends on their condition. But the church, in its wisdom, has put that late masses so we can abstain as long as possible, during the Great Holy Fast. But in terms of the sadness, we are sad because of our sins that led Christ to suffer. So that should lead us to repentance. If we get out of Passion Week and we don't feel repentant, then we didn't get the message.
And that repentance, those tears that are shed are also in turn a very, very joyful experience. So that's all we have time for now, but we will be back after the break, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the second half of our episode of Youth Lounge on our discussion on Lent. Now, we were just discussing, the hymnology and the changes in the church. We'll continue with that discussion for a little bit.
Yeah, actually, I wanted just to say one more thing that we didn't really emphasize properly. When we talk about the hymns like that, it has that kind of sad, aspect to it. It's also very joyous. Like there's times where it's very joyous. For example, I'll give you an example. Like there's a hymn called Pekathronos, right? Where it starts, it's very, very mellow, very low. But then towards the end of it, it starts getting really high. Like the pitch starts to change. Because I think it's a good reminder for us that we're sad about this thing, but we also have this joy inside of us that Christ has come and he has given us this salvation. He has given us this free gift. So there's still that balance. It's not all sad and it's not all mellow. There's still that aspect of happiness and joy.
And joy, yeah. And you'll notice that something that I've experienced in Passion Week, usually after Good Friday, you have a lot of aunties or uncles saying to Kunasama Tayyiba, I'm really bad at Arabic, but which means kind of like happy feast day. Is that right? So it's acknowledging in that tradition that it is a joyous day, whilst we have been mourning as well.
Exactly.
So we'll move more to the practical side of Lent. It's something that everyone struggles with. We have someone who's asking a very relevant question. If I like fasting food, what else can I do and what other things can I sacrifice? Or is it really about sacrifice? This person is struggling a lot because fasting is not really anything different to her.
I think, I could probably answer that based on what Mina was saying earlier about, fasting with not just your body, but with your heart and your mind and your soul, like loving God with your whole self, not just one part of yourself. I think you can add to your spiritual journey throughout Lent, if this person happens to like fasting food or, whatever it may be, I'd say it's not really about sacrifice, but it's just about learning to know when to say no to something that you enjoy. Whether and because we're so human, there's so many things, so many worldly things that we enjoy. So something that you can maybe say, just for today, I won't do this. Just try for a little bit, or adding more prayer into your routine.
No, I really agree with that. I think we can go wild spiritually, but sometimes we're just we get a bit into that habit of.
I think you're stuck in the motion of just it's about fasting. I've given up, McDonald's. I've given up all of this. Tick the box and. Now what?
If anything, that is actually more of a beautiful state, because now you've got this longing to just make it an experience and make it something that you really want to fight for, that joyous experience of what might feel to withhold from something that you do.
Is it just about food, withholding from a food you like?
No.
I was just talking about food. Really? No?
No, it's not just about food. I think there's many parts to your journey throughout Lent. One of them being learning how to say no to food and controlling your body, but it's increasing. It's your chance to really throw yourself into the church and what it offers us during this time. Whether it be more masses going, and slowly I feel like I would start to get into the spirit of Lent more and start to feel it more.
And I think sometimes we need to change our perspective in terms of things. At times we go into the fast thinking I'm giving up things for God, I'm gonna do this, for Him. At the end of the day, He's not sitting there waiting for your fasting. It's not like it kind of increases Him or decreases Him. He's God. if we go in knowing that I'm going into this fast because I need to benefit, I need to, I need to gain control. I need to go in and, obviously with God's grace, I'm gonna, achieve this goal. All right, it's me that's benefiting. It's not like I'm offering God something, that He doesn't really need. It's for me. And once we change that perspective, I think it helps us. Like it gives us like this drive. I want to change. I want to do that.
Purpose. Yeah.
I like the verse which says, sanctify a fast. So it's not a fast as a standalone thing that we do. It has to be sanctified. So it has to be a holy fast. And how do you make that holy? Is fasting. We have to always remember that fasting is not the end in itself. It's a means to an end. So we don't fast because we just fast and that's it. It's a means to take us on a spiritual journey closer to God, to help us. And fasting, when we fast, we need to remember that we're fasting. The whole body is fasting. It's not just my stomach is fasting, it's my whole senses. So it's not really fasting just from food. When I'm fasting, I need to remember that my eyes is fasting as well. So I shouldn't be looking at bad things. My mouth is fasting. I shouldn't be saying wrong things. My ears is fasting from listening to any bad stuff. So this is in harmony I need to remember. And that's by fasting from food acts as a reminder of my whole senses, to tell my whole senses I need to fast.
But Abuna, what if like you are doing all these things and you're like giving up the things that you enjoy and trying to go through this process, but you still feel like, I know sometimes that happens to me where I feel like I'm fasting and doing what I should, whether I am doing it or not, should be doing, and then I'm still not really getting much out of it. Like it's kind of just a real struggle. I know it's supposed to be a struggle, but I feel like when you hear about fasting, it should be struggle and you still get benefits from it. But sometimes I feel like it's just a struggle.
That's a question for everyone, not just me. But I just quickly I would answer in saying, because the focus is not on the aim of the fast. Why am I fasting? Why am I doing this? Is it because the church tells me to fast, or because I want to use that to get closer to God? So the focus is not for me changing foods from fasting to non-fasting food, or the opposite, but to actually take that as a means to get closer to God. Even if I don't feel it all the time, and we said before, we not necessarily have to feel that all the time, but we still pursuing that. We need to have to work on it. Because when we fast from food, we feel much lighter. When our body is much lighter, that gives advantage or gives room for our spirit to go high.
We have someone who asked a very similar question to what you were asking. She said, every Passion Week for me has been the same. Like, we have that same routine, that same canon, that same everything. Sometimes even like for me, I bring the same book that I didn't finish last year. And, it feels like I'm in this it's the same thing. How do we break out of that? How do we make this like different, something like crazy experience?
I think personally for me, like just adding on to what Abuna and Irene and everyone's been saying, like it just hit me right now, because a lot of my Passion Week personally, or like my Lent throughout the year, starts off pretty mellow, then I get to Passion Week and I see everyone around me, then I get psyched up, then it just goes straight down again. And I think that's like a massive issue that a lot of us face, like just by the nodding of your heads, okay? I'm just gauging the response. And so I think subconsciously, I feel like I do it in a sense of, I do fasting, I do all these things because I want to sacrifice something to God. Almost like what Mina pinpointed in that I am giving something to God in which that is going to perhaps, decrease or increase his value. It's almost like I have that ownership over, I don't know, the food. And because now I'm giving it to him, that's like almost like, God, I did this for you, now you owe me. It's almost like we view God like a vending machine sort of attitude. And, thinking about it, we like, in my head, I started to realize that it's actually not really about what I give to God. It's actually more about realigning everything to God. And it's that everything is actually his already. And just coming to that recognition that it's all his. And so that opens it up into more of like a bigger spectrum, not just food, but what is it in my life that is the number one, number two, number three priority? And they're the things that then I should realign to Christ. So that opens up not just to food, but it could be, I don't know, what do I do my daily life? Like, am I always on Facebook? Is internet my issue? Is my eyes, like Abuna mentioned, or my ears? Like, what am I doing constantly, every day to day, that is just engrossing me and it's got me covered? Sometimes food isn't an issue for us at all. and sometimes it's something else that we just need to realign. And I think the issue is that when we don't do that, it's almost a form of idolatry. It's almost like we are worshipping like Facebook. We begin to worship, social media. And so, in my personal opinion, I feel that the Lent is all about just realigning all this to Christ.
You know what? Okay, I agree with everything you said, but for me, that feels boring. Like, what is exciting? Like, what am I experiencing? Like, I 100% believe in that realigning control and, regaining control, like you were saying before. I love that point. But if I was an outsider and I heard that, I would be like, that's boring. Like, I don't want to stop what I'm doing that I enjoy. I don't want to, have to realign control. My priorities are set, How do we really, have that, I don't know, can it be fun? Can it be something fun? Can it be something that is a mystical experience? Or is it just something that is the same every year? Is it, I don't know. I think the content is all there, but it's the experience.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it's part your attitude as well.
Okay.
It's. I think it would be hard explaining it to someone who's not very familiar with the rites and the traditions of what we do, but I think that once you really engross yourself in this period, everything else kind of just becomes superfluous. Like you don't really, you kind of almost. I don't know. I've never really gotten to this stage, but I can imagine that when you're fasting, you almost forget that you're fasting because you're just receiving so much from God in that. So I think in that way, it probably does become more interesting and has a bit more of life.
So how do you continue if you don't feel like you're receiving anything? Should it be I know, Abuna, you were saying before something about proving your love for God and, even if we're not receiving, we're always, by doing it, you're proving, God, I'm not taking anything, but I'm just purely giving because I love you. But how do you practically carry through? It's so hard when we're not seeing results or we're not feeling like we're changed or we're not feeling like we're being healed. How?
I need to kind of change things up. Like, for example, this fast, I'm going to try, start this book and finish it by Passion Week. Or I'm going to try, sing more songs. I'm going to try, just try to change the way you do things. And once you give yourself these different means, then you'll find yourself enjoying it. You'll find yourself actually getting into it, But if you just keep every year do the same thing, the fast comes, you do the same thing. Nothing changes. All right? But once you try integrate these different things, I'm going to read a bit more. I'm going to maybe, try, if I eat cheese in the fast, I'm going to try not this time. Once you change all these little things, it gives you this new experience, this new way of doing things. I think that's important.
Yeah. Always I remember I watched actually on CYC an episode by Father Lazarus from A Monk's Life. And he was saying in a honeymoon of a marriage, it's obviously really exciting, but when things move past that, it's not, you have to change it up. You have to make it fiery again. You have to, so like you said, I actually really agree with that. It's a practical way of kind of making things exciting. I remember my confession father, he's like, change your prayer corner, change your candles, change this, change that. Makes you excited to pray, makes you excited to do things differently.
Because the other thing you can do is you can turn your prayer and fasting into a routine. Yeah, that's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Last thing I just wanted to add on that, because I genuinely do feel with this question, this is something that I've genuinely faced and something that I've gone through. I think it's almost just you approach Christ, you sit down with God and tell him, look, God, I don't feel you. I don't know where you are in my life. Show me, reveal yourself to me. I want to try stick by everything that you're doing. But Lord, just don't forget me. Just remember me. And I think it's when you approach him with that contrite heart, that broken spirit, you recognize that God is, he will answer your prayer. I'm I can't say certain, but I'm 99% sure that God will move your heart in some shape or form.
That actually reminds me of a talk that touched me last Lent. And it was saying, something that you have, you enjoy. Someone always enjoys something spiritually, whether it's singing hymns, whether it's just sitting at his feet, whether it's something else, but do that more, If I really enjoy singing, I'm going to sing more in my prayer. I'm going to dedicate what he gave me to enjoy.
Personal experience.
Yeah.
It comes down to personal experience.
Yeah.
And I think our whole spiritual life, it will be very dry if we don't have that personal experience with God. Many times we focus on a lot of things, but we neglect that personal experiences. Yeah. This is what adds the excitement or the change or the motivation that keeps us going. Is I feel God, I touch Him, I feel He's in my life. That's what keeps me going.
Yeah. You know what? That reminds me of the taste and see that the Lord is good. It's ironic because you're fasting and you're not really physically tasting anything, but you know, you taste spiritually of that real food.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed today's discussion. I hope you guys have been somewhat enlightened or understand Lent a bit more, the Great Fast. Thank you so much for joining us at the CYC studios in Sydney, Australia. God bless.